What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Shooky from Shook Earth Media, and today we are talking about Fear the Walking Dead Season 7, Episode 3, called Cindy Hawkins. And this episode is basically a John Dorie Sr. and June Dorie episode. They are surviving in an underground bunker that Teddy had built prior to the apocalypse, prior to him going to jail. This was where he embalmed his victims, his serial killer victims, and it's like a bus, a couple buses underground, a couple different rooms, and as soon as we see this place, I'm thinking, like, how did he make this? I mean, he made it on his own. He dug a ditch in the ground and then put the buses down there. I mean, this is before he had a cult, right? So he didn't have people to help him. So it seems a little far-fetched that this thing would exist. And there's electricity down there, and there's a generator that's charged by this exercise bike. And it's like, is Teddy an electrician as well? I mean, so it feels a little far-fetched to me. But just getting past that, we start off the episode with a montage. We see a kind of a repetitive montage of John and June surviving underground, and they have the same routine every day. And honestly, it gets a little boring fairly quickly, but the episode changes when there's some shifting dirt above that shakes the bus, and a shelf is knocked over, and on that shelf there were whiskey bottles, and John Dorie Sr. starts going through withdrawal. And this is where the bulk of the episode sparks from. This withdrawal is giving him hallucinations, which is a real thing that happens, and it is very severe for some people. So seeing these hallucinations was actually cool, because they were really creepy horror vibe, and the atmosphere of the bus and everything. We see this room where Teddy was doing the embalming and stuff, and all that's really creepy. And I really did like the hallucination scenes. Like, when this franchise lately has delved into the horror vibe, it's been doing really well for them. I mean, we had the Golem dudes in season 11, and that was far and away the best episode of season 11 so far. So seeing the horror aspect in this episode was good. It was refreshing, and I did appreciate it. However, it was kind of in service to a storyline overall that I didn't really find all that compelling. It's about finding one of Teddy's victims' bodies that he was never able to find, John Dorie Sr., that is, and he's trying to keep this promise that he made to her mother about finding her body, and it's not that compelling to me, because Teddy's already dead. He's right above them. He's done. And also, I am not all that compelled by it, because her mother is dead too. Like, who's he gonna tell? Like, what's the point of finding the body? And I get that he's hallucinating and all that, but it doesn't lead to any new revelation that affects the main storyline in any way, so it's a self-contained thing. Doesn't really have any impact on the story going forward. So, all in all, it just kind of fell flat to me, even though I really did like the hallucination scene, some really creepy stuff. I mean, we had her mouth sewn shut, and then she opens it up like a zombie, and that was excellent. I really enjoyed that. And then we get a lot of coincidences in this episode that also kind of drive me nuts. So as soon as the one time that they go up and surface, finally, we have John Dorie Sr. get spotted by these gas mask dudes that we've been seeing. And of course, the one time that they appear, that they go above the surface, they just happen to be there waiting for them. It's very contrived, really coincidental, and the coincidences in the show just keep adding up, and it's way too much. And apparently they had heard on the radio, because John Dorie every day has been broadcasting on the radio, like, hey, is anybody out there, yada yada. But he didn't reveal his location, and if he did, that would be a very stupid thing to do. So he didn't reveal his location at all, and it doesn't really make sense to me that they would just be able to locate them. I don't know if there's a way to reverse engineer radio broadcasting. Maybe there is, but in the apocalypse, it seems a little far-fetched to me that would be a thing that could happen. So I didn't really buy into that part of the storyline. I mean, the gas mask people are able to find them. Strand's people are able to find them at the end. Morgan is able to find them at the end, all based on their radio broadcasts, and it doesn't make sense to me. So I found that a little far-fetched. So that part really didn't work for me at all. We have this conflict between June and John that is, like, they have a certain amount of days on this blackboard that they need to wait before it's safe to go outside, and supposedly June had read this in a book about surviving nuclear apocalypses, and it turns out that she was making that up because she was afraid, and she didn't want to go outside. Now her character's been defined by fear. She didn't want to give her name away because of fear of losing people and all that. So it kind of makes sense, but it just felt like this artificial tension that they just needed some conflict between them. So they have her make that up, and it doesn't really track for me. It doesn't really land for me. And then we have her getting, like, pinned under some wood that falls from the ceiling, and John Dorie's like, I'm gonna abandon you because I need to find Cindy's body. And again, we already talked about how that doesn't make sense. And the hallucinations at this point are a little over the top because Cindy's, like, talking to him like his imaginary friend, and maybe it's realistic, maybe it's not. It's just a little over the top for me. And I don't really care about the finding the body storyline. So he leaves her pinned under this wood, and it just feels like something he wouldn't do. I mean, would he really leave her? She can't eat or drink water. She can't pee or anything like that. And also, where do they pee and poop in this underground place? They don't cover that at all. These are the things I'm thinking of when I see the episode. So, and they don't seem to have enough supplies either, but I'm getting distracted. So she gets pinned under this wood that falls, and then he goes up above the surface again. And of course, because coincidences are all over the place, he happens to go up at the one time that those gas mask people aren't above. Like, they're trying to get into the underground place at this point, so he just happens to go up when they're not there. And then they happen to show up just as soon as he is out of sight. And then they show up and they're trying to get in. And of course now they can because he left it unlocked, right? Because he's up and out there. So, and then they have this shootout. And the shootout's fine. But it's just like John Dorie's been shaking this whole time. And now all of a sudden he has no problem popping off the enemies. And also there's this cool scene with the zombies that look like Teddy's victims. But he's been spiked with a sedative, and he still has no problem, like, killing all the zombies, even though it feels like the sedative should be kicking in at any time. I don't know how long those things take to kick in anyways, but it did seem like it should be kicking in at some point. But, of course, he's able to go down and save June's life just in the nick of time. So, yeah, all that's a fine climax. It just felt a little contrived at that point. And they only had June pinned down by the falling debris just so that they could have that climax at the end. And then, of course, the body ends up being right underground, right where they were this whole time. So, and that, it's supposed to be surprising, but it feels like the most obvious possible outcome. So, they're trying to be surprising, and it comes off just really predictable. So, that was my take on that end of that storyline. And then they're about to leave the underground place to try to look for greener pastures, of course. And then, conveniently, of course, right then, it collapses in. And it looks like just a bunch of dirt comes in, and somehow they get knocked out. I don't really understand how they get knocked out. But, of course, it's convenient for the plot, and we're all about convenience here on Fear. So, that's what happens. They get knocked out, and then they just wake up in Strand's tower. That's the biggest contrivance of all, and it was kind of obnoxious. And I'm just thinking about the mechanics of, okay, so Strand's people somehow know where they are based on the radio. And why didn't they come sooner? Because they've been broadcasting for a long time at this point, so why didn't they come sooner? But anyways, they come now, and they're looking down at this hole in the ground, and they're like, oh, there's bodies down there. We need to go back to the tower and get some rope. And then they get some rope, and then they pull the people up who are still knocked out, unconscious, and then carry them back. Or do they have a horse or something? They strap them on a horse? I don't know. I'm just thinking about that, and it just seems like, I don't know. It doesn't seem very realistic. It's very contrived. I don't get what the point of separating the characters was, if that's just how we're going to end things. That they just... end up waking up in Strand's tower. So I don't know, it felt like a little much to me. And then we have them looking out at the walkers that have amassed outside of the tower, and I'm starting to think that storyline doesn't really make sense either, because it seems like an undue threat. I really did like the first episode of this season, but it kind of, logical issues are popping up all over the place for me about that episode. But I was distracted because I like Strand's character and stuff. So anyways, this episode, it's self-contained. I like the hallucination stuff, but the plotline didn't really land for me, and that's just how I feel about it, guys. So let me know how you feel about it in the comments down below. Overall, I like parts of the episode, but it didn't stick the landing for me. So that's where I'm at with it. Let me know what you guys think, and give me a like if you like it, and subscribe to see more videos, and I hope to see you in the next video. Peace out, everybody. Catch you later.